Good evening and welcome to the agenda. I am Ajay Kaul. In this program today we will be discussing the tough stand taken by the United States against China's claim on South China Sea. Even as many remain focused on China's aggression in Ladakh, the US and several other countries are taking coordinated actions to tame China for its increased assertiveness in South China Sea and its aggressive actions towards Hong Kong and Taiwan. The US is taking the lead to counter China's growing muscle flexing in the region. It has already sent 2 aircraft carriers to South China Sea to send out a message to China for bullying its neighbors. Britain is also set to send an aircraft carrier to the region where China is usurping the rights of neighbors like Vietnam, Philippines, Malaysia, Brunei and Taiwan. What does all this mean? Is there finally a serious effort being made to tame the dragon? In the agenda today, we will try to find answers to such questions with our special guest Dr. Deepak Vora, a former diplomat and expert on international affairs. But before we welcome Dr. Vora, let us have a look at this small report.
The US looks set to take on China over the issues like Hong Kong and South China Sea. On Tuesday, US President Donald Trump announced that he has signed into law the Hong Kong Autonomy Act, under which sanctions would be imposed on entities that help violate Hong Kong's autonomy and financial institutions that do business with them. The move is in response to imposition of controversial national security law that tightened Beijing's grip on Hong Kong, which has been semi-autonomous from the mainland since 1997. Besides this action, the US has also sent its 2 aircraft carriers to South China Sea after Secretary of State Mike Pompeo said the world would not allow Beijing to treat South China Sea as its maritime empire. Pompeo also said that the US stands with the international community in defense of freedom of the seas and respect for sovereignty and rejects any push to impose might makes right in the South China Sea or the wider region. The aircraft carriers have already sailed through the South China Sea, even as China issued warnings to the US. Britain is also likely to send its latest aircraft carrier to the region where China lays absolute claim, usurping the rights of neighbors like Vietnam, Philippines, Malaysia, Brunei and Taiwan. Beijing claims an area known as the 9-dash line and has backed its claim with island building and patrols, expanding its military presence there, although it insists its intentions are peaceful. Although largely uninhabited, 2 island chains in the area are said to have reserves of natural resources around them. The sea is also a shipping route and has major fishing grounds. Last week, China and the US held naval exercises in the area at the same time, a rare phenomenon indicating rising tensions. The Trump administration, which is seeking re-election in less than 3 months, has pledged to overturn what it says is 40 years of policy failure with regard to China. Tensions between US and China have escalated after the coronavirus outbreak. Trump has been holding China responsible for its spread and even said that it was a man-made virus created in laboratory in Wuhan city of China. The US administration has also been making highly critical comments against China for its treatment meted out to Muslim Uyghur minority in Xinjiang province and pro-democracy protest in Hong Kong. Even on the Chinese transgression in Ladakh, the US has lambasted Beijing for the aggressive behavior. Bureau Report.
So let's welcome Dr. Vora. Welcome to the program, sir.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kaul.
Good evening.
Always a pleasure to be on your show and with you in particular because I learn every time I'm with you. Thank you very much.
Pleasure is mine, sir. So let us talk about the increased activity in South China Sea. The US is now taking the lead. There is 2 aircraft carriers of the US have already sailed through the South China Sea. Britain is now going to send its US carrier. What does it mean?
It's very clear that the South China Sea does not belong to China. Although they say that for thousands of years they have had claims over it, nobody listens to them anymore. Nobody takes them seriously. Yes, it's true. It's one of the world's busiest waterways, and as far as China is concerned, 4 out of 5 levels of its energy imports pass through the South China Sea. 2/3 of its total trade passes through the South China Sea. 1/3 of total global maritime trade goes through the South China Sea. And if you like fish, 10% of the world's fish also is supposed to come from the South China Sea. What is now happening is the claims they are making on some imagining 9, 10, 11, 12 dash line, which means nothing. The rest of the world is waking up to the fact that China is now in its bullying mode. Let me remind you, sir, that till about 25, 30 years ago, there was a massive American naval base in Subic Bay in the Philippines, probably the largest American marine base outside the United States. And China didn't do a chew at that time. Their ships used to sail around merrily, had no issues at all whatsoever because they were self-perceived to be weak at that time. Now, since 2013, after it began, sir, the attack, as far as I can see, if I may use the word attack on China, is at all levels. The economic attack is very clear. Britain has banned Huawei. The Americans have done something similar. They are having major issues with the European Union that will also prevent big Chinese companies from coming there. We have banned so much of Chinese origin stuff, including the 59 apps in India. Japan is doing something. Everybody is now getting together. So on the one hand, there is this economic pressure. Secondly, there is military pressure. The Chinese have, I believe, learned their lesson that India is standing up to the big bad bully in the Himalayas. They had hoped we wouldn't, and that would tell all the other neighbors with whom China has a problem that, look, India can't be your ally. They are too weak, too scared to stand up to us. The second is this, and the third that we are seeing is diplomatic, sir. Across the world, China is isolated. Let me tell you, sir, I've been speaking to a lot of friends around the world, having served in so many countries, and I've asked them, I said, suppose there were today of the 193 countries in the UN, if there was a vote on should China remain in the UN Security Council, how many do you think would support China? One of them said 185 and then paused for a moment and said, we'll vote to throw out China. There you are. I mean, how can a country mess up its national interest so completely, so totally? One more stage in the march of folly when governments act against their own national interests.
So as you are right that now most of the countries are against China, but let me highlight this issue that the South China dispute is not news. It's not something which emerged only last year or this year. It has been maybe there for more than 2 decades. And earlier also America has been issuing threats, but they never carried out any threat. I mean, they just did not pursue those threats. But do you think America and other countries are now serious to tackle this issue and catch the bull by its horn?
Sending an aircraft carrier group into a particular area, you don't send them there for R&R, for rest and recreation. They've actually gone there because they intend to convey a message, and in military as well as diplomatic affairs, Mr. Kaul, as you know much better than I do, messaging is half the battle. Now, what the message going out to China is, and the message to all the other weaker, relatively weaker countries, neighbors of China in the South China Sea, whether it is Vietnam or the Philippines or Malaysia or Brunei or South Korea or whatever, or Japan, that you are not alone. The world's only hyperpower, the United States, is right there because they believe in freedom of navigation. India believes in freedom of navigation. China has alienated everybody. I mean, they had once signed some kind of an agreement. There was, I think it was in 2011, if I'm not mistaken, about behavior, how to behave in the South China Sea and to allow freedom of navigation. They renege. They break every commitment that they make. I mean, the promise made by them is not worth the air that is expended when they exhale, or a written commitment is not worth the paper it is made on. But the message, sir, is loud and clear, let there be no doubt about it. The Chinese do not have the guts to take on these two American carriers that are floating around there. The Brits are also dispatching something. The French, I'm told, also are running around over there. I don't know what we are up to. That's not that we should talk in public. But let me just say that they are totally isolated and cornered. And the fact that the American aircraft battle groups are there is a very strong message. If push comes to shove, as the Americans say, then they will show the Chinese that America is not a declining power.
But China has also issued statements. Foreign Ministry has issued statements saying that we also have assets to counter American threat. So what do you say on that?
You know, the Chinese are very much like Alice in Wonderland. I mean, it's fantasy. You remember China's best buddy, Pakistan, one of their ministers said that we have atomic bombs that weigh half a kilo or something, which you put in a briefcase.
But
Chinese go around saying we have
Nobody
has tried this.
No, I may interrupt you here because we can't dismiss it as fantasy, Chinese fantasy, because as of now, Chinese have been holding fort in South China Sea and ruling it, virtually ruling it. Nobody else has any say there. So they are they mean business, whatever they are saying.
Mr. Kaul, I entirely agree with you that they mean business. But now the rest of the world has woken up and said, guys, your business doesn't mean that you murder my business. I mean, I want freedom of navigation. You can be the self-declared king of the South China Sea, but allow freedom of navigation. As long as you allow that, I have no problem with that. Guinea-Bissau can claim to own the South China Sea. I mean, Brazil can claim to own it. It doesn't matter as long as you have total freedom of navigation. Ships bearing the flag of any country should be free to go back and forth. The moment you begin to impede that free movement, that's when the challenge arises. And I believe so far it's Chinese bluster. The weapons that they have haven't been used. Of course they have the weapons, but they haven't been tested. As you have, at one point of time said, they have no work experience.
Yeah.
So we have to figure out, take it seriously what the Chinese are trying to do, but then also show to them that we are even more serious than they can be. And I believe India has given this message very strongly in the Himalayas.
So actually that is the Chinese strategy. They create fair psychosis, maybe without work experience. So, but the issue is now, the question is whether the rest of the world, I mean US and other countries really mean business. While China means business, do the Americans and others also mean business this time?
Judging by the statements that are emerging, the Secretary of State says that China's claim that for thousands of years it has owned the South China Sea is all rubbish. And the 9, 10, 11 dash line means nothing. You can make as many dashes on a piece of paper and say, oh, this is fine. Now that is a statement of intent. So whatever the world says about the present administration in the United States under President Trump, the one thing that I have observed as an observer, he says what he means and he means what he says. And he says, I want to build a wall on the Mexican border, which he's gone ahead to it. I'm going to stop visas for people from Islamic countries, one of the first things that he did. So we have to take it seriously because he's actually walked the talk. You may not agree with what he says or with what he does. One is entitled to have one's own views. But the reality is that he has done what he says he will do. The second thing is that, and in my assessment, China has got stuck in an echo chamber. We call this great power autism. They are slow to understand messages that are being given because all they hear is their own voice. So I would say that China has now painted itself into a corner. It is not in a position to take on the combined navies, even of the 10, leaving aside China, the 10 most powerful navies in the world, which is ours. Not even the next 5. It's just not possible. They'll get clobbered so badly. It may just be the origins of yet another global conflict. We hope not. I personally believe the Chinese will back off after looking for a faith-saving compromise.
How do you see the role of Russia? Russia is kind of passive and silent so far. What role do you see for them?
You have asked me a brilliant question, Mr. Kaul. You know the answer. There was a time from the Bolshevik Revolution and till, let's say, the Second World War, the end of the Second World War. After the end of the Second World War, the two big fellows in the world were the United States and the Soviet Union. Sir, remember, whether it was during the Russian Empire pre the revolution or the USSR after the revolution, the Russians have always, and I'm talking now of Russia, not the other 14 members of the former USSR, always had this sense that they have a superior destiny. They refer to the country as Mother Russia, that we are going to be second to none. For some time, because of American and Western pressure on Russia, they had to accept the secondary role. I mean, all along they had been the big brother. They taught communism to Mao Zedong. He had no idea what it was. They taught him what it was. Socialist International, this, that, and the other. Their industry was essentially what they learned from Russia, rip-off, reverse engineering, whatever. Russia was the source and origin. So the Russians haven't forgotten this, and I believe they are biding their time. They would be delighted to see China humiliated so that the rest of the world says Russia is now back to where it belongs. I believe they are watching very carefully. They are not going to intervene if there is a conflict. They just sit back and wait for China to destroy itself. So, as we've always believed, that when your enemy is on self-destruct mode, please do not interrupt him.
So my view is that China, in fact, after, as you said, Russia, after it collapsed, Soviet Union collapsed, and Russia is now not this second power in the world. So I think China has been trying for decades to capture that second space, that I am the only alternative to USSR. So what is your view?
Oh, you're absolutely right. I mean, they want to tell the rest of the world all their policies in Asia and in Africa where they make huge investments. So we know this. The Chinese have been practicing what we call checkbook diplomacy. They've gone in there saying, you guys want a loan from the World Bank. The World Bank sends a team, then a reassessment team, then a reassessment team, and 5 years later you might get 50% of the money. And then they're constantly looking over your shoulder. Ditto the US Europeans, ditto the Americans. Whatever reason, they say we want to make sure the money is properly spent. The Chinese come along and say, guys, here's the check, do what you want, throw it in the river, as long as you give it back to us over a certain period of time. So that was very good. It became an alternative to funding from Western agencies and Western countries. But the price that they have extorted, and I can speak with some authority among the African countries that I'm privileged to represent, they are now hurting because the Chinese say, look, if you can't give us this, give us this. If you can't pay back this money, we are taking this. If you can't give this back, take it. We are taking this. May I just give you, if you give me a minute, a small example that when I was your ambassador in Sudan, we had a consortium of 3 oil companies that were prospecting for oil. It was ONGC Videsh of India, there was Petronas of Malaysia, and TNPC of China. And what would happen, sir, there was a pipeline that all 3 had built. When the Sudanese were not able to pay the money for utilizing the pipeline was owned by all 3 companies in the consortium, then India would say, listen guys, you haven't paid back, so we will tell you that you've got to give it back and please let's talk about it. The Chinese would simply send them a note saying you haven't paid back, so we are lifting so many million barrels of oil as payment. That's the kind of bullying tactics that they accept, and the world is now reacting against it. Exactly what the Americans did after the collapse of the Soviet Union, that we are the only country in the world, when the world dials an emergency number, it rings in Washington, we are the uncle of the Puri Dunya, the end of history, etc., etc. They are attempting to do that. They are not going to succeed. Nobody likes their political and economic system, not even the people of China does.
But since we talk about bullyism, they in fact, China, I remember I covered that because China was in fact bullying or pushing BRICS countries to have an alternate currency, yuan. But India, I think, opposed it, and India actually scuttled that move. That was in 2015. By 15, it was now over.
I think they are there in the BRICS bank. So nobody denies that you're a big economic.
No, they wanted yuan to be the currency, alternate to dollar.
Absolutely, they wanted to demolish the dollar because they didn't think the euro was doing a good enough job.
So intra BRICS trade was to be conducted in yuan. That was the proposal.
Absolutely. That did not work. I'm glad it was shot down. We were not the only ones. I believe the Brazilians also were very upset about it. They said we won't do it. Similarly with the Russians. So I don't think that these are... See, it just tells you that the dollar is the reserve currency in the so-called of the world. It's not going away anytime soon. Let me put it very simply to the millions of people who are watching.
No, I'm talking about Chinese ambitions.
Yeah, exactly. But let me put it across like this. Your ambitions can be realized when you have a system that wins you friends and confidence across the world. Ask anybody, sir, the human spirit wants freedom, democracy, it wants the opportunity to realize its potential. Ask anybody in the world, sir, even ask the Pakistani. If he had a choice of emigrating to China or emigrating to the US, it's a no-brainer, sir. Who would want to go there? You can't have you can't crush the human spirit. Therefore, the United States, despite all its difficulties, all its flaws, all its weaknesses, still remains the magnet for self-realization. The Chinese should realize it. The number of Chinese who have gone to study or work in the United States far exceeds the number by a million times the number of Americans who have come to study or work in China.
So while we talk about America and Britain and other countries coming to the region militarily, so there is also development that Australia has now agreed or has a rethink on joining the Quad, which was proposed to in I think 2008, but they were hesitant to join, and I think now they are ready to join the Malabar exercises. Four nation exercise.
They wanted to, and we've agreed. We've shown them, we've shown the rest of the world, all right, guys, we are now going to act in a national interest. We're not worried about what these fellows across the Himalayas think. So come on in and join us. I mean, the interoperability of the Navy.
No, but Australia has been scared and hesitant all these years to join because of, scared of China. That's why they were not joining.
I think they were scared, Mr. Kaul, as you will agree, that their economy, which is so totally dependent on China, would take a knocking. But that is already beginning to happen, and the Australians realize that for temporary economic gain, you cannot accept permanent subservience to any country. The Australians are very proud of their nation, and they have, during the two wars, etc., during the Vietnam War also, when they were on the side of the United States, they know how to fight. It's a military that knows how to fight. The Chinese don't. So naturally, the Australians understand, provided they've accepted that they are part of Asia. I mean, they're a continent in their own right, stuck somewhere between the West and the East. But certainly if they are coming in, that is a very positive sign. The Chinese have protested against it. But then the Chinese will protest even if you have fried eggs instead of noodles for breakfast.
And Australia, I think, is also rethinking about this economic relationship with China because of this coronavirus crisis.
Absolutely. And the Chinese have now said that, they've banned import of beef and wines from Australia because the Australians demanded an independent inquiry into the origin of the coronavirus. You can't do this kind of thing. I mean, you're behaving like children. Basically, as we say in Hindi, kutti kar dunga kind of thing. It doesn't work in international relations. You need maturity, which the Chinese are not displaying, sir. They don't have it. There is a Chinese external publicity division, the equivalent of our public affairs diplomacy division. I must say that they are singularly ineffective because their target is not foreign countries. Their target is the audience in China, the leadership in China.
But as you said, China is known for conducting diplomacy through bullying. But there is one tiny nation, it's called Taiwan, not independent nation, which is taking China really head on, and right now they are conducting week-long exercises to counter any threat because they are apprehending Chinese invasion, as they call it. So how do you see that?
Absolutely. They are even conducting air raid exercises. You are too young, you won't remember, but in 1971 we used to have these air raid exercises in Delhi. We used to have the sirens going, and then we would dive into the basement and come out when the all clear sounded. We had to put newspapers on our windows so that light wouldn't go out and so on. That's precisely what the Taiwanese are doing. In moments of the coronavirus, perhaps it's a little more difficult, but they are trying it out. They're taking this very, very seriously. May I remind you that in 1978, when China was admitted and Taiwan was booted out of the UNSC, it was its place because they were, after all, one of the victors, so to speak, of the Second World War. May I just say that I recall distinctly the speech made by the Taiwanese ambassador or the foreign minister, who was, I don't remember, the UN. He said the world will regret it. He was very right, sir. The world is regretting it. China remained quiet for a while. Deng Xiaoping went to the UN and said, if we ever behave like an expansionist power or a big bully, then the rest of the world should combine with the people of China and throw us out. He made this speech in the late 70s. That's exactly what the Chinese are doing now. And if we take Deng Xiaoping seriously, then we should all get together with the Chinese people and boot Mr. Xi Jinping and his coterie out. The reality, sir, is that the world is suffering because of China's virus, and it is suffering because of China's aggression, because of its desire to expand. This is not going to work. It has never worked, it will not work. In human history, there are innumerable examples.
We are running out of time, so last brief comments. Should India take a stand on Taiwan and Hong Kong? Because we have been hesitant in doing so.
You know, Mr. Kaul, I know what answer you want me to give. This is not the answer from my ministry. But if
I want a genuine answer.
Honest
answer.
All right. If I were to make the decision, I would reaffirm my one China policy. That one China is the Republic of China, also known as Taiwan.
Thank you so much.
That's my answer. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for participating in this debate. This is all in the agenda today. Thanks for watching. I'll be back with another interesting topic tomorrow. Till then, goodbye.